Welcome back, superstar. Michelle Villalobos here, and I'm with Keith Kohler, expert in all things small business finance and financing. He's the founder of K2 Financing, Financing Man. He leads a financing retreat, which we'll talk about later. And we're here in this first video together to talk about how to finance growth in your small business. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you, Michelle. It's really good to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. All right, let's talk about what kinds of financing are available to entrepreneurs.
Yeah, Michelle, one of the things I find with a lot of my clients and entrepreneurs in general is sometimes there's an issue with taking on financing because they're often thinking of it like they do their personal situations, right?
Okay.
And you and I know when we look at the literature and the personalities that are talking to people about personal financing, debt is always evil.
That's right. You want to get rid of all
You
your
want to get
credit
rid of it,
card
that's
debt.
it. That's horrible because it piles up, it's high interest rate, it
Right.
can prevent you from accomplishing your personal objectives.
Right.
On the other hand, business financing, properly done, meaning you have a plan, you've thought about how you're going to use the cash, you understand how it fuels your growth, is excellent. Because without financing, you might go this far. With financing, the curve shifts up and out, and you can accomplish much bigger things. Faster top-line growth, more profitability. But you really need to understand what you're going to use it for.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about now. So we've talked about why someone might want financing to fuel growth.
Right.
And that it's different when you're looking at it entrepreneurially from personally.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about those two types of financing. You've got equity financing and debt financing. And I know you specialize in both, and especially the debt financing. So just in a nutshell, what are we looking at with equity financing?
Sure. So throughout a life cycle of an entrepreneur's journey and their businesses, what they're looking at first is, surprisingly, it's they themselves.
Okay.
You are the first source
Because
of
you're an
equity
entrepreneur.
finance. That's right.
Okay.
And because almost all people in the beginning, they take their personal resources, right? Their savings, maybe their personal credit cards. Maybe they're cashing in retirement plans. Maybe they're looking at life insurance, home equity lines of credit. Those are all the typical sources I see that come from you yourself. And you're the first financer of your business. And it usually goes in as an equity contribution. It can go in as debt, and I'll come back to that. Beyond you yourself, what happens is kind of like the next circle out are your friends and family.
Right.
Some people say friends, family, and fools, but we might just leave that F word out.
Okay.
So friends and family. So that could be your parents, your close by relatives in that closest circle. But it could also mean your colleagues. It could mean school chums, right? It could mean other people in your network. Those are the types of conversations that can get interesting in many different ways, because a lot of times what I see is, in addition to you focusing on what your business opportunity might be, they might be betting on you because they know and they trust you.
Got it.
They love you. They want to support you. And oftentimes it's an interesting dance between someone who might just hand you money because, hey, I love Michelle, or, hey, maybe I really want to look and understand her business a bit more. So those conversations are really kind of interesting. And an oft-quoted thing that we hear is, hey, if you're getting friends and family financing, what's it going to look like at the Thanksgiving dinner table? Right?
Yeah, we're heading into
Thanksgiving.
Next week.
And you think about this, right? I mean, imagine you're at that Thanksgiving dinner table and things are not going well.
Yeah.
What's that conversation going to look
Yeah.
like? It's almost like you can have a conversation about politics around the table, right?
Nothing is that bad these days.
That's right. Yet on the other hand, if it's going well, people are going to rush in to support you.
Right.
So it's a bit of a dance. And the most important thing in that type of equity financing is saying, what if things do go wrong? And we really do have, I think, a solemn responsibility to say, hey, here's what risk looks like.
Okay.
Aunt whomever, uncle whoever, brother.
And I would say, given as someone who's investing right now in my brother's next venture, it's all in writing, it's all organized. I know exactly how much equity I'm going to have in the company, right? He's doing it in a way that has a lot of integrity around
That's absolutely beautiful. And you know how unusual that is? That's probably only in about 10 to 20% of cases that I see.
Really? Because that's how my brother is.
And I even made those mistakes. I didn't formalize my agreements like I could have.
Right.
And so I learned.
Okay.
And through a couple of hard knocks.
So rule number one, if you're going to do any kind of equity financing, especially with people you're going to spend
especially with friends and family.
Thanksgiving people,
yes, that's right.
You want to have it all really organized. And in writing and look at what's the worst case scenario
Absolutely.
here.
And again, you really have that solemn responsibility to advise your friends and family on that downside risk, while also getting excited about all the big opportunities.
Okay.
I think you can balance the conversation between both to effectively get what you want.
Okay, so I'm hearing like you've got this equity side, and there's this whole area of debt equity, debt financing, which is maybe even more exciting because you don't have to deal with the friends and family.
Can I give a few more ideas on equity first?
Sure.
So once people move beyond friends and family, typically now they're looking at outside parties for the first time.
Okay.
And in the earlier stages, they're called angel investors. Angel investors are typically folks that might do $50,000. They might do even as high as $1 million, although that's the high end of the range. And those are usually people that are in your local community, somewhat within a geographic range that's nearby, because they like to kick the tires. They like to become strategic advisors. They like to get more actively involved. Usually not meddling, and that's what you really want to avoid, but usually quite supportive.
Okay.
They want to get that phone call. Beyond angels, there's super angels. Then venture capital firms come in at certain stages, usually of revenue, when you might reach $1 million, $2 million. Beyond that is private equity, farther into the future at much higher stages of revenue and profitability. But that's kind of how it looks like going outwards.
Nobody's ever actually walked me through all those rings. That's really helpful. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that's what your journey will look like, right?
Okay.
Because it is based on you achieving certain platforms and stages.
Okay, so that's
So
equity.
that's equity. Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk a little bit about debt financing. This is something where, as you said, people have a negative connotation a lot of
Frequently,
times.
yeah.
And what you're suggesting is let's shift that mindset and let's look at how it can fuel your growth. And let's talk a little bit about what matters if you're considering taking on debt financing.
Absolutely. And I think to your first point, frequently when I have conversations with my clients, I hear things like, "Oh, this is overwhelming," or "I can't take on any debt. My wife, my husband, he'll kill me, she'll kill me." And again, those stories come from the personal side of financing.
Okay.
And oftentimes I see these in the very earlier stages,
Okay.
or when companies are much smaller, right? We see that overlap. It's like that Venn diagram where your thoughts about personal finance and business finance tend to overlap a lot.
Okay.
My job often is, let's release those money stories. Let's release those limiting beliefs so that they can live harmoniously, yet separately.
Okay.
So
And we're
that's
going
kind
to
of
get into that.
We're going to get into that.
later
Yeah.
in a different video.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that.
Yes.
Speaking of which, hold on. Take a moment, please. Like this video. Subscribe to my channel. We're going to have at least 10, if not more, videos with Keith talking about all matter of things related to personal and business, finance, money mindset, getting financing, growing your business through financing, your financial health, all these amazing topics. So definitely subscribe and stay tuned to the rest of these videos. All right, let's get back to it.
Perfect. So debt financing, again, starts with you, because you yourself can make that choice to put money into your business, not just as an investment. You can choose to put it in as a loan.
Really?
Absolutely.
So you can loan yourself the money and then pay yourself interest?
You can do any of that. You can loan it as a zero interest loan. You can loan it paying yourself back as interest. I've seen all of these in different settings in the hundreds of companies I've worked with.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it really kind of depends on you, and it depends on what you think that will look like to someone from the outside.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Tax-wise, CPA-wise, you're good.
Right.
But when you make those decisions about how you want to finance your business, you always need to be thinking about who's coming next behind that and what will be their opinion. How might they think about it? So that's you. Friends and family sometimes give you loans. It can go in as loans instead of equity. So those first two circles are the same.
Okay.
When you start going to outside parties, I've identified actually 15 types of debt financing that's available to people.
Wow.
It's hard to enumerate all of them now, but usually the first level of third parties are things that you find in your community development organizations, or micro lenders.
Okay.
And these are typically ones, what we know in Miami is something like the Miami Bayside Foundation, which is set up to just help companies in Miami-Dade County.
Okay.
And it's oftentimes minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, people that might not be bankable. A lot of those are available and typically a first source of debt financing.
Okay.
Grants can often have some component to it. It's not usually debt. It's usually just given, like it implies, as a grant. But sometimes there could be a loan component on top of that.
Okay.
So those are the ones that are available to companies at the startup to the early stage level.
Okay.
Moving outward from there, people start to look at other types of financing that are available to them, and that can be depending upon the type of business. If you are a service-based business, usually your options tend to be a little bit less.
Oh, okay.
Right. If you're selling physical products, right, like your computer or anything like that.
Right. My books.
Your books. Hey, there's the book. So moving on from the financing that you typically source, you and your friends and family, the institutional financing that founders will look at before they're profitable.
Okay.
Right, before they have their first year of profitability, usually involves things like accounts receivable and inventory financing, or financing from private funds.
Okay, let's talk about that. So inventory financing is basically you finance against what you already have in stock?
That's right.
Okay.
Usually from your finished goods inventory.
Okay.
Not usually the raw materials or
Okay.
other items that comprise inventory, but typically your finished goods inventory. And then the cousin that goes nicely with that are accounts receivable.
Okay.
So Michelle, if you're selling your book to Books and Books in Miami and they buy 500 of them,
Right?
500,
Yeah.
no,
Are you hearing that,
We're
Books
going
and Books?
1,000. 1,000 is the minimum order quantity. You got that? Okay, cool. So 1,000 books
Okay.
at what, 500 each?
Yeah, right. They're $35
Okay,
each.
so $35 each. But say you agree to say, hey, you don't have to pay that all in one day.
Right.
You can pay me within 30 days.
Okay.
Okay, that's called net 30, and that generates a receivable.
Okay.
So financing exists such that, okay, Books and Books is credit, good credit, you know they're going to pay you. So instead of you waiting 30 days to get that money, you can get a portion of it on day one.
Upfront.
That's right.
But we wouldn't do that for 30 days unless we were in some kind of trouble, right?
It's a yes and.
Okay.
So sometimes yes, because you might have cash flow crunch, cash might be tight.
Yeah, need
so
a
you might say,
payroll or something
that's
like
it.
that.
So you might be thinking, okay, I don't have a lot of cash lying around. I need to finance something just to keep
Got
a
it.
consistent level
So you
of
can
flow.
do it to get out of a pinch.
You absolutely can, protecting the downside, right?
Okay.
For all those reasons you said, your operating expenses, your payroll, all of those things come into play, and that's what I hear often when people
Right.
are thinking about financing because things are a little tight.
Got it.
Alternatively, when you get financing, it can also be, hey, I'm on rapid growth.
Right.
And I know that the more cash I have, the more I can parlay it and make it work for me.
Okay.
And making it work, Michelle, imagine again, it's a $35,000 invoice for you. If you knew you had $30,000 on day one,
Right.
maybe you having extra cash, you could go back to your vendor and say, hey, I can
Print
pay you
more.
print more, and I can pay you up front. Would you give me a discount?
Oh, look at this. All
Yeah,
this
so that's really
right.
about making that money work for you. And sometimes people don't really realize, hey, if I have a lot of cash, I have a lot of power. So if you were to go to your vendor and offer, hey, I know you gave me those terms and that's fantastic, but I can pay you everything up front. Maybe you'll get that awesome discount, 5%.
Right.
And the curious thing is you might wind up actually making money out of getting financing.
Okay.
Because
And that's the idea.
That is the idea. At least it's a break-even, neutral thing while it's fueling your growth.
Got it.
So I look at financing as, okay, yeah, it can protect that downside, which
Okay.
is really critical and very important. But think of all the upside potential that you might not be fully realizing or taking advantage of.
All right, superstars. So that was just the very beginning, scratching the surface of this conversation about equity and debt financing. Catch us on the next video. We're going to go deeper into how you can use debt financing to fuel growth. If you are a small business entrepreneur and you are looking to get some debt financing, this is your man. He's your expert. He's who I refer all my clients to. I've known this guy for almost 20 years
Yeah,
at
20
this
years,
point.
can you believe it?
He's been my client for 3 years now, moving into the 4th year. So I highly recommend him. I trust him. I invite you and encourage you to reach out to him. Tell him, Keith, how they can connect with you and what you will do for them if they need some support in finding financing.
Thank you, Michelle. Absolutely. So the best way to connect with me is through LinkedIn. And you can look me up, Keith Kohler 1 on LinkedIn in Miami Beach, so the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. Reaching out to me on LinkedIn is really the most effective way, and I'll get in touch with you immediately. Also, I'm on Instagram at Financing Man. And the thing that I offer my clients, and I'm really proud of this product because I refined it over the years, is a 2 to 3 year financing strategy. Because a lot of times people come to me and say, hey, really quick, I just need something right now. No, let's look at it over 2 to 3 years. And that I call your financing review. So you can find me at yourfinancingreview.com. You'll be directed to a one sheet. You can understand exactly the benefits and features of what I'm going to give you on a 30-minute strategy call. And you'll leave with a full financing strategy. So I encourage you all to take advantage of that, and I'd love to speak with you.